Have you seen changes in the last, I don't know, 2-3 years that are noticeable, or trends or anything that you might not want to talk about them?
So there's those early indicators of what is happening in the market, which is probably a better read of general consumer sentiment towards the future than just looking at the sales figures that have happened at the end, which obviously everyone focuses on. So your partner in crime, if you will, working with you to, as soon as you're looking at a product, it will pop up and say, yep, here is other options or best price.
So you don't have to press anything, it just automatically
It's just there.
does
so
that.
It sits in the background. It's not invasive, but it's just there to support you. And it's just in the periphery.
You're also going to show them they're actually getting the best price. It's available all here, but they're all more expensive. Then you know you're going to go with that one.
And even if the product elsewhere is more expensive, we'll still show that. Okay. Because if it gives the consumer confidence, actually, I've got the right deal, then that's a good outcome too. So it's not about only trying to drag the user away. It's about empowering them with the information to make that confident purchase decision.
What does the future look like for you guys? Because no one knows, right? It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been ever a time where change has been so significant, so rapid.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at consumers and their awareness of AI agents out there to help with shopping. I mean, 80% will say that they expect it to be a significant part of their shopping patterns, and 50% will try in the next few months if they haven't already.
So they can maybe even make decisions about the products they're going to stock or make or produce or whatever. Is that? Are you getting to that level with them?
It absolutely is. And I think there's being able to provide them that view of pricing versus the competitor set, but also tying into it what is happening from a consumer sort of market share piece. So I think arming retailers with information that allows them to make more strategic decisions around pricing rather than who's cheapest, where to match that. Actually understand, well, which of their competitor set price movements actually impact their relevance to consumers, because not all retailers are equal.
No.
Not all brands are equal. So just because retailer X has reduced the price by 50% doesn't mean everyone else has to follow.
Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Firstly, thank you for coming all the way from Melbourne just to come on this show, and for no other reason.
None whatsoever.
No, it's good to grab you while you're up here. I know you come up, every couple of months or so, every month or so. So thank you for taking the time to come into the studio. It's so much better to do it in the studio. We have done a few remotely, and what we found is simple as that. No one watches them.
Yeah.
So it's a waste of time. Before we get on to you and your business, I'll have a very quick question, because we were just talking and you were talking about the weather in Melbourne. You went to the Peninsula School. Is that the Mornington Peninsula?
It is, yes.
Whereabouts? I just asked because all my wife's family are from down there.
So around Mount Eliza, Mount Eliza
yes,
area.
They all live in Mount Martha.
It's a great spot.
I watched that place transform from, crazy. I mean, it was just insane.
It changed pre-COVID, but certainly when that hit, I think more and more people moved to that part of the world.
And they've got the roads now. You can get there, right? It's not
broadly speaking, yeah.
Yeah. But no, thank you for coming in. So for all of our viewers, why don't you give us a very quick overview, firstly, of the business, Zyft, and then secondly, we'll sort of delve into how you ended up falling into that role. Was it about 2 years ago, roughly?
Just over a year ago.
Just over a year ago. Cool. But let's talk about the business first. So tell us what Zyft is. Just to give us the elevator pitch.
I'll keep it to the elevator pitch. So Zyft has been around for 5-6 years, but it's an AI-based shopping comparison tool.
Yep.
So built and created to help consumers who are concerned about and don't have the confidence that they're getting the right product at the right price. Give them an easy solution, web extension or app to find that answer for them when they're shopping, whether it be at home or in store. So it gives them that simple
it does
solution.
In store as well. I didn't know
it does. Your barcode scanner on the app has proved to be really successful.
I should have spent more time looking into the product. I read it and I thought, I know that product. I know it because I've seen it online on as a web extension. But I did not know you could take it in store.
And it's been one of those features which has started to transform how retailers view the service as well, because that's the other half of making sure that we're actually providing retailers and brands a transparent, level playing field of being found by high intent shoppers. So it's not about how much retailers having to spend on advertising. If they have the product at a competitive price, they'll appear in our results because we index over 140 million products across 50,000 retailers in Australia.
That's
so
mental.
if it's online, it can be found. So the barcode scan has been a great thing. So when with number of stores now that will offer like price match type solutions, if I'm in store, scan the product and I can see it is slightly cheaper elsewhere, rather than traditionally walk out the door, never to be seen or heard of again.
Maybe come back in a week, but probably not.
Or even if they hadn't scanned it, just that fear of it may be cheaper elsewhere, I'll leave and I'll do some more research. Now they can actually scan it, say, well, can you match this? And the sale is there and then. So the store and the retailer retain that sale. So
how good is that?
Yeah, and it's been really interesting to see how it's really resonated, because I think with the changing landscape, this is an always evolving space, and consumers are certainly cognizant of it, but retailers are as well.
So if I did that in a retail store, most stores would know of that product. They would have seen it before, you feel?
Increasingly so.
Yeah.
So I think especially in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, we've spent a lot of time meeting with a lot of the larger retailers, brands, and making sure the Zyft solution is actually understood and what it's to stand for.
Well, before we go into I've got a quick question now, because you sparked a question in my brain before we go into your background, which we will come to. Don't worry. We're going to frame you up. We are. Have you seen a shift obviously we had this massive shift to online shopping. Mm-hmm. Then COVID accelerated that, made it a necessity. Have you seen a shift back towards in-store shopping? Like we've very much seen a shift back towards events and personal meetings, and there seems to be people really clawing back for that connection. Have you seen that in the shopping environment? Yeah,
it's interesting. I think there's certainly what we've seen, and I suppose it's the sustained cost of living pressures that households in Australia are feeling day to day. It's just a real thing. And with interest rates rising again, it's even more pronounced. I think what we've seen is consumers continue to shop for value.
Yes.
When they feel it's a good time, good price to purchase, they'll buy it. And that's why we saw all the retailers would have felt, and all the news articles around that sort of Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales period, there was spending going on. So consumers are really focused on where and when to purchase. The in-store piece, I think there's still a convenience factor. Certain items, whether it be fashion or larger items, people still like to go in and see and touch and experience and try the product before they take it home. So I think those behaviours, I think the in-store piece will continue to be a critical part. And that's why for us it's been building out solutions which are always going to be there for them when they're shopping where it might be.
Cool. Well, we'll come back to that. But let's go into your history a little bit, which I did read my little research document on you this morning. You've had a pretty impressive history. Obviously, you've been there for now about a year. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to go back to childhood. But let's go back to maybe a few fair steps. Where do you sort of think your journey began from a tech point of view? Was it that head of product role at iSelect? Was it before then? Or talk me through a little bit of, because you had some impressive roles with some very fast growth businesses that had a massive impact on society and as a whole. So I'm intrigued to know how that affected you.
I think a lot. I don't know if I've sought those roles or they've sort of been a good fit.
Serendipity, let's go with that.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of that. And I think from my background, one of my first roles, I fell into product management when product management didn't exist. So you certainly couldn't study for it, and suddenly it's a field that more and more people are interested in. But being in businesses where the product that's being offered is at the heart of it, you either stand by it and believe in it yourself or you don't. And I've always gravitated towards those businesses that are actually proud and excited by the product that's being put out there, and that it's delivering genuine value, and it's typically not going to be offering value at the cost of someone else's value. Mm-hmm. So I think through that period, whether it be some of the classified sites or more recently with iSelect, which is where I met Damien Waller, who's the founder of Zyft. Yep. Those sort of businesses that are solving consumer problems, but also trying to help the other side of a marketplace or a two-sided dimension. It's great, and it's an exciting space to be in. It's fast-paced. There's often more questions and problems to solve than there are obvious solutions. So it's about how you then surround yourself with people that are inquisitive and that same level of energy and drive we can do something here. It's fun, and you can see the value that's going to deliver to others. Yeah.
And so you met David there. What was he doing there?
So Damien was he was one of the founders of iSelect.
Yeah. Oh, he was? Was he really?
He was.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought there was a different relationship. So he started iSelect. And what year was that? That was it was literally the most prominent sort of comparison site ever, the one that had the first impact.
In this market, absolutely in Australia, was the brand that really paved the way for other sort of comparison sites to follow. So, that's some years ago now. But the growth of that story and that brand was an exciting time because, again, it was pioneering. It was trying to solve things across multiple verticals, and being the product and tech space, that was running those functions to actually bring it to life and the complexity that sat there and keep it simple. was always a good challenge and a great learning experience.
And did you join there in the early years?
It had already started to establish beyond health insurance.
Yep.
So it was a few years in. So it was when it was starting to grow into other verticals like general insurance and life insurance, etc. So I came in, and that's probably been a similar theme to my story where it's not always been the very startup phase. It's in that sort of, okay, there's something, now it needs to scale.
Yeah.
Whereas Zyft, I've got to get involved at a slightly earlier stage again.
And what happened in between those two?
So I was a CEO and prior to that heading up IT and technology for a company called Local Agent Finder. So again, comparison, prop tech.
This is definitely your thing.
Well, it seems to be. Yeah. I mean, comparing real estate agents versus retail, I think one's pretty faster paced, arguably, but the same themes are there. It's about how can you make a consumer feel empowered and in control of a decision that's ultimately theirs to make. So they should feel how they're spending money, where they're spending money. Is it the right time? Is it right value? They should be empowered with information, whether it's selling houses or buying something. If you can make the consumer, the end user, feel as if they've got the information to feel confident, empowered, and they make an informed choice, it removes that friction. It removes all those fears that otherwise might prevent an action happening today. So it's that sort of recurring theme across each of them.
When you left there, Local Agent Finder, did you leave there to go to this role, or was there a gap in between?
There was a gap.
There was a gap, wasn't there? Yeah.
After, I think it was 6 years in the CEO chair there, I decided to take 5 months off, travel with the family, and do some traveling around this amazing country. Slightly different pace of life for a little while.
Yes.
But because I'd had that working relationship with Damien in the past, there was sort of that conversation that was happening in the background.
Ticking along.
Yeah, there might be something to mutually explore.
And what did you learn in that period, going from a product manager to a CEO? So it's a big difference in terms of responsibilities, in terms of the way you think. You know, you've got to think of it from a commercial point of view, not just the product point of view, whereas product managers often are very focused on the user. You've also kind of got to look at you've got a double-sided market, but then you've got to look at another side as well. How did you find that transition?
It was absolutely a leap into a bit of the unknown. Yep. I think being involved in businesses where the product is at the heart of it, I think that succession or that pathway for product people to progress down into that into the CEO sort of space, I think there is a logical sequence of sort of steps that happen. Particularly with that ability to problem solve quickly, trust the people around you, and get the most out of them to build their confidence and capabilities to deliver rather than try and solve everything.
Yep.
I'm not saying all product managers, and myself included, have always got that right over the journey. That balance, it can be a bit hard. I can do it faster myself or to empower others. But I think when you have that view of what's the problem, how can we grow this, what does success look like, how can we test something quickly, there's a lot of crossover in terms of those skills. It's just obviously the breadth, the depth, the sort of the scale of those sort of challenges are just one or two steps more. But I think it was a good pathway to head, and it's been really, really enjoyable.
Did you find that transition from not wanting to do it yourself hard? Because a lot of people, anyone going into that leadership role who knows how to do something and obviously knows how to do it well, which is why they've made that transition up, it's a hard thing to do, to let it go completely, particularly when, as there would have been times when you were under pressure, right? And things weren't going according to plan, as is always the way. I think I'm interested in this question because there's been a lot of new opportunities in Australia, I think particularly with private equity coming in, buying 8-10 million ARR businesses for people to move into those kind of roles. And they've usually come from product sales, marketing, tech, whatever background it is. And I think when we're doing recruitment, it's one of the questions we get asked a lot, how do I make that transition across? How did you do that? How did you stop yourself from wanting to get in there and just say, I'll just show you how to do it?
I don't think that sense is ever suppressed completely.
Well, how do you control it?
Okay. Look, I think there's a few different ways, and one comes with time and experience, and there's also through necessity. I mean, you can only do so many things. So if you overinvest in one component, then something is being traded off day to day in the business. I think the most empowering part is to actually seek feedback from team and actually be open to that and continually understand how your leadership style or approach is being perceived or felt by others, because well-intentioned approaches aren't always the way in which they're received or felt. So I think it's being open to that. And whether you're a product person that wants to get involved, or you could come from a finance background, corporate background, there are always going to be these individual biases and an approach to things that, unless you ask the people that are experiencing it, how do you know? It's the same product in market. You can think how the product's going to work, but consumers or end users will tell you in volume. So I think it's just being open to the fact that you're not going to nail everything or be perfect all the time. But be prepared to grow and jump into new challenges and see what comes.
Amazing. All right. So you're traveling 5 months, shooting around. Were you in a van or were you doing
We
a little
were.
bit? You were in the van. You did the van thing.
Yeah, and some pretty remote places along the way.
How old were the kids?
They were 13 and 10.
Gosh, that's a tough age to be in a van. There's a lot of energy in that age group.
I thought you were talking about myself.
Well, maybe you as well. I don't know.
No, I think, but it was perfect age, and it was a great experience to be able to explore those and see it through our own eyes, but also through the kids. I think it's if anyone who is wondering or thinking about is it worth doing to spend that time, it's the best thing you could possibly do just to experience it. The trials and tribulations of not knowing what a river crossing might bring, but the kids see you vulnerable and uncertain about what the answer might be. So it was phenomenal.
Fantastic. So you're on this journey. You're obviously talking to Damien, and then you decide to come back and take that role. Where was the business at then? Because it was a much earlier stage business, and what was the thought process for you to come into? Because that would have been a new challenge for you in itself. Actually, the moment you joined, what were the biggest challenges and how long had it been going then? Been going maybe 6 months or 8 months or something?
The business is actually, it was first formed in about 2019. So it'd been going for some time. The early phase was really that test and learn, building out the tech capability, building out the sort of initial product and start to find that market fit and solutions that could potentially be scaled. So I joined after Damien and the team had done a raise, and that was coming to that next chapter of sort of accelerated growth and further scale of the solutions. So it was, I think, the fun time to come in.
Yeah, well, they got some money. They're not scrabbling around trying to make things work.
No, but for me, the two fundamental things were the product, as in what it was standing for, what it was trying to do, and how authentic it was. So I had to tick those boxes, which it being part of sort of Damien's group of businesses, I was confident it would always be, but it was great to see. The other part was the team. So having an established team that had been there for some time, had gone through all those sort of challenging early stages of rapid sort of build and test, and still had the energy and passion and belief of how big this thing could be, and the energy and enthusiasm by which they talked about it, and the things they were talking about in terms of how it could be great for Australian consumers and how it could solve retail problems. It was authentic and being spoken in their own words. But to see those things, when you start to get the combination at a stage of that next wave of growth, it's pretty compelling. And in the AI space where everyone knew it's going to continue to evolve into, you look at those ingredients and you think, well, how could this not be an amazing ride?
Yeah, okay. And so you joined. You had recharged. You've obviously got a lot of energy for it. Tell me exactly how the product works. So we obviously just talked about the scanning in store, and everyone can understand how that works. But I'm guessing it works the same with your web extension when you've got it online. So
Absolutely.
So just run me through maybe a couple of different scenarios as to how it works and how it would work when you're online. So it's easy in store to go, hey, can you price match? But when you're online, I would imagine it's a slightly different journey.
Absolutely. So I think with the extensions on both Safari and Chrome is where it started.
Yep.
And it was always that view of when people are shopping online, how can they, without any effort, be confident that they're about to buy the right product at the right price from the right retailer? So that extension sits in the background and continually is that shopping assistant. So your partner in Chrome, if you will, working with you to, as soon as you're looking at a product, it will pop up and say, yep, here is other options or best price.
So you don't have to press anything; it just automatically
it's just there.
does
so
that.
It sits in the background. It's not invasive, but it's just there to support you, and it's just in the periphery. And when relevant, you can engage with it, and it just gives you that confidence. And directly through the retailer, it tells you with whether that product is in stock with that other retailer too. So it's answering all those questions that just make that process easier. And I think it just removes the friction. It just removes the reasons of, I'll come back and look at it later. If we can keep the consumer engaged and knowing it's going to be easy, then it's a win for all. The app came out of that where it was, I suppose, as user behavior trends changed. I mean, when people are out and about, yes, they can be using Safari on their mobile.
Yep.
But when they're in store, if you can actually give them a tool that they can engage with proactively to do the same things, whether it's the barcode scanner or other features that might be with the Deals Hub where users can browse for great deals, price drop notifications. So if you see a product, but it's not quite the right price yet, tell me when it's this price. Through the app, they can set that and it gives them a notification when it does hit that price. So it's trying to give those additional features when there's different use cases for that particular user, whether they're shopping for white goods, fashion, whatever it might be. Those needs subtly change from the one user based on what they're looking at that one time.
Okay, so let's take the scenario of I'm going to buy a new fridge. You said white goods, a new fridge. And I go on to, I'm not going to mention any sites, but I go on to a site and I find the fridge I want, and it's at $699. the corner extension will pop up, I'm assuming, and say, hey, you can buy that cheaper. And does it list like the next 10 or does it list all of them? Or how does that work? It gives you
a list of all that have been discovered.
All that have been discovered. And does it scrape that information or do you have agreements with all those other?
So we have different ways in which we sort of find the data. So it's all through different solutions. And that's where the AI and ML part of this world, we were obviously early adopters of that, but where that starts to unlock different ways in which you can pull it together. The trick is in how you use that capability to look at the different products when one retailer might describe that white good one way and then the other 5 retailers may be slightly or very different in terms of its representation or information. So that's the tricky part. But as you described in that example, for the consumer, they're online, they've looked at retailer A and the product's there, and we will just say, well, there's another 5 options, 10 options where that product is the same price or less. And even if the product elsewhere is more expensive, we'll still show that. Okay. Because if it gives the consumer confidence, actually, I've got the right deal, then that's a good outcome too. So it's not about only trying to drag the user away. It's about empowering them with the information to make that confident purchase decision.
That's interesting because I was going to say, surely retailers will hate you, but they wouldn't if you're also going to show them they're actually getting the best price. It's available all here, but they're all more expensive. Then you're going to go with that one there.
Yeah.
And you've obviously built a lot more into that. I'm assuming now it would pick up deals that those organizations might have. It would pick up delivery options that those organizations might have and all that kind of stuff because some might be doing free delivery, which might save you $200. Does it do all of that as well?
That's where we've built in, and when retailers and the majority of retailers are now partnering with us, as we go through that then we're able to then obtain those next layers of information and provide, because that differentiation of service is really important to the consumer. Price is obviously a primary driver of purchasing decision, but how I'm going to get it, is it going to cost more to get it? What's the returns? What's the returns? What are the reviews? So it's about giving that consumer the information that they need. And that same consumer, their need may change depending on what they're buying. If they're buying something that's a kitchen item for $20, they may not be as concerned about some of those service features versus the $600-odd fridge.
Well, they may be more concerned about getting it that day rather than Thursday, even though it's $2 more. And is it any product? Is it services as well?
It's any consumer product at this stage.
So would it be flights, for example?
It isn't at this point.
Right.
So it's focused on retail. However, we are obviously looking at where this can also be applicable to. So it's been built in a way that's scalable. So we focused in on the Australian market without any sort of urgent need to look elsewhere, but always with the view to, well, how would this scale in the longer term?
Yeah.
Similarly, from retail, it's obviously where we've focused and continue to, but always being sort of mindful of, well, there's other needs of consumers in this market and others that it could lend itself to. Okay.
And then from a perspective of you've built relationships now with the retailers, how does the actual product work? Like, how do you make money? How is it monetized? How do you have a membership fee that people pay? Is there a clip somewhere? How does that actual commercial model work?
It is a really good thing to explore. So I think fundamentally when Zyft was created, the focus was not on how can we quickly make revenue.
No, it was on the service, right?
It was service, and any commercial relationship had no bearing on how the products or retailers return, and that's still true today. There is no bias to it. It is based on what is discovered, what is best fit in terms of that price order. We have obviously worked with retailers, and by building out those partnerships, then there is a referral agreement in place, which is quite common, which the consumer has no impact to because it's the same price. It's just there's a referral piece in the background. So there's a large number of retailers that we've now sort of worked with, over 1,000 nationally, that are signed up and partnering with us, which is great. And we stand by the brand. So when there's big retailer conferences, we'll be there and being proud to talk about it. And it's been fascinating. And in the last 6 months especially, seeing those and being part of those conversations, to the inquiry and the interest has been great to see that it's seen as a friend, not foe.
Yes.
I think it's at a time where for retailers and brands, there is a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty of, well, how do we remain competitive and how do we retain margins and how do we get in front of consumers when the landscape is shifting? So I think Zyft is a solution which can be understood to, it's going to deliver high intent, engaged customers at the point of sale. So it's a channel which they're eagerly, happily and looking to explore.
Absolutely. So you've just done a raise, obviously, last year, which included, the ability to hire yourself and obviously others within the team. Where does the product look to now in terms of its future? Is it looking at those other industries, or is it looking at? So I would imagine a concern for you guys is, you've got a product like Claudebot comes out that starts taking control of people's money and doing things for them. Is that going to interact with your AI or your product, or is it going to do it itself? Or, what does the future look like for you guys? Because no one knows, right? It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's been ever a time where change has been so significant, so rapid.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at consumers and their awareness of AI agents out there to help with shopping. I mean, 80% will say that they expect it to be a significant part of their shopping patterns, and 50% will try in the next few months if they haven't already. So it is changing, and that means we all have to adapt and find ways to deliver value. I think at its core, the fact that Zyft has been built around adding genuine value to both consumers and retailers, if you hold true to that and continue to then use the emerging technology and capabilities like everyone else, but continue to focus on where value is built, then you can adapt and you can continue to scale. So we are looking at how we can continue to offer different experiences or different solutions for consumers. We've built out some additional products for retailers as well in terms of the data insights and ways in which they can leverage Zyft for growth. So I think there's always way, but when there's the speed of change means we're the beneficiaries of that too. We can lean into and leverage these new capabilities. And then you just have to make sure you got the right product.
Absolutely. I mean, the data you guys would have would be fascinating, like consumer behavior. You would have enormous amounts of data on that. Yeah. Have you seen changes in the last, 2-3 years that are noticeable, or trends or anything that you might not want to talk about them, but is there anything that you're sort of seeing as a business in terms of the behaviors? And Australia is a little bit isolated to the rest of the world in everything that we do, that have surprised you?
I think that the pace at which users will adopt new technology, I think, has got faster.
Australians are good at that. They're not good at lots of things, but they are good at adopting technology.
Yeah, and I think it's always been a great market to be in. With the population this size, you want to make sure it's
a nice test field.
It is. I think that the things we're saying, I mean, it's a lot of it's the ability to see what's happening through the year, perhaps ahead of the actual transaction time. So we could see, because we're involved with consumers when they might be researching or about to purchase, when they're shopping for different categories or things leading up to like the Black Friday sales period, what's happening in that period and lead up, the inquiry level and the searching versus the actual purchase behaviors. So there's those early indicators of what is happening in the market, which is probably a better read of general consumer sentiment towards the future than just looking at the sales figures that have happened at the end, which obviously everyone focuses on. But being involved with the consumer and adding the value so that there's that usage, we get to see what's happening perhaps just that stage ahead of most other.
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk about Black Friday. I hate it. If I'm honest, I hate it. I know that sounds ridiculous because it has so many different stories they can tell you about. I got this, I got that. I'm offline during Black Friday because everyone's online. Everything's slow. And the whole hype. I find the whole thing. I don't know. I never wanted to go to a Boxing Day sale, which is essentially your old version of Black Friday, right? Even though they both still happen. It does seem that it has become a huge, huge day for the retail sector. Like there's a huge amount of the population who get on and will wait and will buy things on that day. So with that, how do you cope with that kind of increase in traffic? Because it seems extraordinary. There's got sites crashing left, right, and center. Do you find that it's just going bananas? Like, can you cope with that?
It's a big sales period, there's no doubt. Yeah. And I think it's not even a day. I mean, you saw it in the weeks.
No, it's like a weekend, pre-Black, post, 48 hours after, all this. I mean,
we had some retailers going 3 weeks early.
Really? Oh, really?
Because
does it work?
Well, there's so much noise and there's so much. And I think if ever there was a time to explain the value prop of Zyft, it's then.
Yeah.
Because it's an important time because obviously the sales volume we can all see and what's happening there. And I think it's reflective of the fact that for Australian households, cost of living pressures are real.
It's massive, yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the want or need to purchase things has disappeared, but the sort of conscious decision as to when and what price is deemed to be the right one has never been more sort of pronounced. So I think when users are seeing all these sticker prices and all the information and sort of the focus the ACCC made clear that they were going to be doing to make sure that there was no misrepresentations of all these.
I'm sure there's no misrepresentation.
Well, I mean, the reason for that coming through, I mean, it was off the back of that concern around how sales were being presented. But if you think about from the retailer side as well, doing the right thing, it would be, you have to be competitive in that time of year because the volume of sales are going through. If there are rogue activities happening elsewhere, that's impacting businesses who are doing the right thing from getting the volume of sales they should. So there's a lot of focus on it from both sides.
Yeah.
And I think from our perspective, it was about making sure the Zyft tool was in as many hands as possible, because if you knew that the price was the best it's been for a while, or with this retailer, it is a really competitive price, then at least you can make your purchase. But there's certainly a lot of activity that remains in that month.
Absolutely. I love the alert feature you mentioned earlier. You know, knowing that you want to pay $1,000 for something and it's sitting at $1,100 and you're just waiting and alerting you. I think that's an amazing feature. And you mentioned earlier you are beginning to talk to retailers about the data. So I'm assuming that you can go back to them and say, look, the interest level in these products has gone up significantly this year. On these one, it's gone down. So they can maybe even make decisions about the products they're going to stock or make or produce or whatever. Is that? Are you getting to that level with them?
It absolutely is. And I think there's being able to provide them that view of pricing versus the competitor set, but also tying into it what is happening from a consumer sort of market share piece. So I think arming retailers with information that allows them to make more strategic decisions around pricing rather than who's cheapest, where to match that.
Yep.
Actually understand, well, which of their competitor set price movements actually impact their relevance to consumers, because not all retailers are equal.
No.
Not all brands are equal. So just because retailer X has reduced the price by 50% doesn't mean everyone else has to follow if that 50% drop isn't going to move the needle on what users, consumers actually do. So trying to provide that platform that gives that combination of sort of lenses by which the retailer can view it means they can actually make an informed choice of how to price their products.
Have you ever tapped into everyone's favorite thing they love to hate, influencers?
Yep.
Let's talk about that. How does that work? Because obviously the rise of influencers have been insane. Mm-hmm. We've now moving to an area where we're getting AI influencers and normal influencers are getting squeezed out. We've also got this huge amount of media attention that people are buying faces, not brands. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's all about whoever's basically got their face in front of their products. How does that fit in with what you're doing? How are you dealing with that? Because that's another whole level of complexity, right?
It is. And I think it's reflective of the fact that how you bring your product to market and get it in front of the consumers where there's greatest relevance, it changes and evolves. You have to be testing new things. So would an influencer shift my decision-making on a particular product? Maybe not. But again, I'm not necessarily the consumer that's then going to be where Zyft is targeting. So I think it's about understanding the audience you're trying to articulate or demonstrate the value to. And influencers are a powerful channel to be able to get that message out there. But be savvy and be aware of, okay, what's their audience? How do you measure the cut through? It's not just about clicks. Or are those users going through and actually downloading the apps and actually using Zyft on a regular basis? So it's understanding, like any other channel of marketing activity, what's the actual ongoing performance of that to work out, is it a cost-effective way of growing your audience or not?
Because there's a lot of codes in that space, right? Everyone's got a code, the influencer codes. And then you've also got the other sort of challenge, I guess, of organizations like Temu, who are coming to market with ridiculous prices and ridiculous quantities. Does that upset the algorithms of your product in that some of the things you see on there, and I've only been on there twice, it's a terrifying place. How is that? Because these are big disruptors in retail.
They are. I think how they sit, I think there's obviously a big play for a market like Australia. So the likes of Temu and other of those international marketplaces making a move, it's going to affect the retailers first and foremost of how they make sure that their products are still found. So that's where we lean into and say, well, here's how Zyft can provide access to those high intent shoppers to be a solution to that fear of what might be coming. But for the likes of Temu, if the products were a like-for-like match with what the consumer's looking for,
which they never are
at this stage, but then it would appear. So that's where it's agnostic to retailer or who is selling the product. If it's the right product, in terms of it matches, it's so therefore relevant to the consumer, then it can get displayed in order. But to your point, it's often if it's a substitute product that might be at a different price point, then it's not relevant to that user in that moment.
So how do you deal with that? So for example, if I go into a chemist, I can choose a generic brand or the brand that whatever they've been prescribed to me. Do you do that kind of thing with retail products as well?
So we have the exact match type products. We also have similar products where it could be either.
So you do have a similar product.
It could be substitute or it could be, so there is that piece too. But we obviously show the exact matching ones ahead of that.
Cool. A lot of complexity.
There is.
How have you found it?
It's been a great experience. I think the complexity is there, but I think that is a good thing as well. When you have a team that are running it like we have, always with a view that there's going to be a solution to solve any problem, you back that over others trying to replicate or try and catch up. So you just keep moving forward. So I think the pace of it has lived up to what I expected. That the product, its value, its intent has certainly been right on point with doing what I expected it to do in terms of hold true to what the value is going to be. Yeah. And the opportunity where this grows to is
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It really, it is.
Yeah.
And I guess that was going to be my next sort of question. You know, I often ask people what was the easiest thing that they weren't expecting or the hardest thing. But I don't think that question is as relevant now as to how do you look to we were talking about this just before the show. How do you look to the future where particularly what you guys do in the space you work in, what is going to happen in the next 6 months, 1 year? Probably, I don't even think we can go past 2 years really, because that's just insane. From a strategic point of view in your kind of role, I'm interested to know how you sort of approach that. Do you sit there doing enormous amounts of research on AI? Do you watch YouTube all night? Do you just say, no, I'm going to focus on our product and we're going to deal with these things as they come up? How do you sort of, in a real leadership position, how do you deal with this world that is just so fast right now?
I think it's a bit of all the above.
Yeah,
there's a bit of in any given day there will be what's happening, and you may be looking at YouTube or testing out new AI solutions or LLM solutions. But fundamentally, it comes back to knowing the business where our core strengths are. What are fundamentally the things that we want to move the needle on and scale and grow, and have then an aligned team that are focused on those tasks rather than spreading a lean operation across 100 things in the hope that 1 or 2 things might work.
Yeah,
it's being ruthlessly sort of focused on these are the things that we need to solve for, test many things quickly to see what's going to actually be the thing that agitates the growth, but keep it focused on those areas where we've got the opportunity to scale fast and continue to ride that wave rather than being too distracted by the myriad of possibilities. Be open to them, to them and understand where they could fit in. And that's probably more that sort of CEO role where you are having to think about, well, this may fit into a jigsaw piece that's 12 or 18 months because you want to have that vision piece. But the team continue to fire through on an amazing cadence of work because they're focused on those key areas and then being brave to test things and see what it moves and see what the consumers do.
I laugh because obviously what we do is being massively disrupted by AI as well. And trying to keep the focus is I probably the biggest thing I challenge with. I've just started watching, I don't know how much of this you've gone down, but I've started watching a lot more YouTube in the evenings. I usually watch some sort of television before I go to bed to sort of wind off the work that I've been doing.
Yep.
And I've started watching AI things. There's some terrifying videos out there. Like I've had nights where I might have watched one that may have been a little bit more doom and gloom than others, and I've ended up having to get back up again because I haven't been able to go to sleep because I'm just sitting there panicking about the future that's coming.
Yeah.
The one last thing I was going to ask you guys, and I forgot to ask you earlier, and it's just popped back in my head. Robots. Right? Robots are coming. There's no question. We all saw the video of the Chinese robots dancing. Let's hope it's not real, but I think it probably was. Robots are probably going to go out and start doing personal shopping. I'm assuming, is that something that you've even considered about having your own robots that could go and do that for them? Like literally go and find the products at the right prices? Is that something that's even crossed your mind?
I think you do have to think about where.
You do, don't you?
And I think the pace of change, you think, okay, well, it's not a sort of futuristic in 2050, this could be happening, but the pace of change. And I think the amazing thing with all this sort of movement with AI and the machine learning is it's solving problems that don't actually exist in the consumer's mindset yet.
Yes.
So it's all the possibilities and then trying to predict where that need might be. And businesses, Zyft and even larger businesses in the technology space don't want to be caught or left behind. So you have to be exploring things. So whether it's robots, I think when you look at the path of what's happened in this space in terms of automating or removing the burden on the consumer of each of the steps of purchase, whether it be a robot that's in a self-driving vehicle going out to a shopping center or not, the digital version equivalent will be, I want to buy this, and then press a button and then it'll go away and shop for you, get the best deal and get it shipped to you. And those things aren't beyond the realms of the near term. So I think there's a lot of activity. So we keep active and keep looking at that space to see how Zyft could continue to fit through that journey as well. But I think for us, it's always, okay, well, what's the user value? And then you build that story and roadmap out. But you have to be sort of exploring what those possible things could be because it's rapid.
It's very rapid. It's interesting. All your answers to me, they come across very much as someone who came from a product background, which I think is great because it means you're a CEO who's very focused on the user and the outcome. and there aren't enough of them. So I commend you for that. I think what you've achieved in your career is extraordinary. You've obviously fallen into this comparison space, which has just grown and grown and grown. I think what you're doing here is amazing. I must admit, I struggle with trying to work out what's going on in our world in the future, and I can see that for you it would be even more complicated. But you look like you're loving it, which is fantastic. And so if we look at the next, I don't know, let's say, what are we? We are February this year. Any sort of things that we can expect to see that you can reveal to us now that might be coming? Any new features that might be coming, or is it all just wait and see?
I think from the consumer side, there will be continually rolling out new features, new things through the year. And that's the fun part of being a business at this stage of growth, where you can launch things, trial it, see how it works. If it doesn't hit the mark, well, you pull that feature out and put it in something else. So there's going to be a lot of sort of evolving change in the app, but particularly in the extension solutions as well, just to make them add even more value to the user. And I think a lot of the space continues to be in that B2B, the retailer side of how we can help them navigate through the period ahead, which is going to involve change, but I think exciting opportunity for them as well.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So if someone wants to sign up to Zyft, let's talk about that. App, obviously, I'm assuming you just download it from the App Store.
That's right. So,
do you want to spell it to make sure everyone gets it right?
That's right. So it's Zyft.
Yep.
And the website's Zyft.com.
And you just download the extension, set up an account, and away you go, right?
That's right. App extension can be easily done.
Fantastic. Well, look, congratulations. I'm sure there'll be another cap raise coming soon. I have no doubt the way the world is going. I think it's great what you're doing. I really do. I think a lot of people won't have heard of the product that have watched this show, so I'm hoping you get a lot more downloads when we release this. But thank you so much for coming on.
No, love to be here.
Cheers.
Great.